What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over a lot of the information that's been flying around on the internet when it comes to the update system for Nintendo Switch 1 games on Nintendo Switch 2, the enhanced games and the differences between that, in addition to the actual game cards themselves. What's a full game on cart? What is a game key? I'm going to be going over those key differences overall, some of the other titles that have been confirmed when it comes to the full games on cart and comparisons to other games, some of the pricing information when it comes to updates, and pretty much everything that's been somewhat confusing with people throwing information all around. We're also going to go over backwards compatibility and how that's working with previous Nintendo Switch titles and Nintendo's new memory for the Nintendo Switch 2, which the older memory that you'd use to expand on the Nintendo Switch 1 will not be supported on the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's start off with the free updates. All of this information mostly is going to be from Nintendo's main official page, and articles and details, I'll have links for you guys in the description as well. So let's first start off with Nintendo Switch 2 and what games you'll be able to play on there from the Nintendo Switch 1 that will be free updates. Some people felt that they're all paid updates. They're not. There's going to be a number of games that have free updates on the Nintendo Switch 2 from your Nintendo Switch 1 library, and they will be adding more as time goes on. This is just the initial batch that should be ready right there at launch. So we're going to go down those games. Starts off with ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Game Builder Garage, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Big Brain Academy, Brain versus Brain. Now remember, with these updates, when it comes down to it, if you connect your Nintendo Switch 2 to the internet, you can download these free updates that may improve performance or add some support for some features like game share in some of these titles. And these updates in terms of the contents will differ comparing. There might be some that do a bit more than others depending on the game. So keep that in mind, guys. All of these that I just listed will be free updates. You just hook up to the internet, you download the patch, you get an enhanced version or better version of that game right then and there. It seems like it's going to be minimal in terms of what they do, but there still should be some updates or some features added in to the game. Now let's talk about where there's some confusion when it comes down to it. We have the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games, the pricing and the structure of what's going to happen. Now shout outs to Pat Back Nitro. He put up this nice chart on Twitter where it kind of gives you a little bit of a snapshot of what you can expect. We went over the free games, frames per second and resolution improvements, stuff like Super Mario Odyssey and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now let's move over to what's next. This is the next tier, and the pricing isn't necessarily final at this point, but it looks like it's going to cost anywhere between $10 and $20 depending on the game. So with games like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, in addition to Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, you're going to get frame rate and resolution improvements, plus some light bonuses, some extra modes, Zelda goodies with the map and the voice navigation, the in-game achievement app, some different type of things that's going to add to the experience overall. Now, I do want to point out before we move to the next thing here, with the higher tier when it comes to it, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the Nintendo Switch 2 editions, if you have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, you will get those at no additional cost. And there might be more games added in the future with that when it comes down to it, with that app that they're going to have, Nintendo Switch and all that. So it does seem like there could be more down the line, but those are the initial batch that you get when it comes down to it, and more in the future potentially, but not Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It's just Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now the next thing that we're going to go here, this is the highest tier, and essentially what you get here, it's anywhere potentially up to $20 for these. I've seen 15, 20, so we're gonna have to wait for the final confirmation, but it is going to be apparently pricier than something like Metroid Prime or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with the upgrade, and that's going to be frame rate and resolution plus more DLC. So this is essentially major DLC added on to the base experience overall. So two games they showed off that are like this are Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 edition and Kirby and the Forgotten Land with the extra content there as well. So you get a big DLC pack along with the game with upgrades to frame rate, resolution. But it'd also be great if you upgraded your subscription feed by hitting that subscribe button. For all of those who are not subscribed yet, hit that like button and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. With Pokemon Legends ZA, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, it seems like that's going to be more in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, where they just update the frame rate and resolution, so it should be in that tier. But once again, we have to wait and see, but that's essentially the difference there between all of them. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Legend of Zelda, you're not getting much new extra actual story-based content or anything, but with games like Super Mario Jamboree and Kirby and the Forgotten Land, you're getting actual DLC, extra story, new modes built into there that are more substantial than the other games. And with some of the Nintendo Switch 1 games, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Super Mario Odyssey and ARMS, it's just essentially going to be like an up-resing of the game. It's going to be quicker, not necessarily anything substantial added in, just frame rate and resolution performance updates, which, by the way, I would say for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, that is absolutely needed, and it's a very good thing that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is getting that. So I wanted to go over that when it comes to the 3 different types at least. Now, we'll have updates for you guys. I'll keep things going, but this essentially is what is happening. This is information taken from the official Nintendo page overall. Let's get into the physical game debate versus game key or DRM debate and what you get with this, because there has been a lot of misinformation going around with the pricing of this and all that. I've seen people say that it's $90 for essential fake physical games and just game keys that you just download from the internet, and that is not the truth at all. There are no games that are $90 that do that from what I understand. And we're gonna go over everything, because a game like Cyberpunk 2077, that's actually confirmed fully on cart. In addition to that, games like Mario Kart World, all of their titles essentially are all actually on the cart itself. You don't have to download anything, which I will explain the game key and all that in just a bit, but I do want to go over what's happening with Cyberpunk 2077 and what they had to say, so I can give you guys an idea of the game cards and exactly what is happening here, because these game cards, they're not the same as the Nintendo Switch 1. They are actually way faster, they read and write data way faster, and they definitely seem significantly more pricey overall. I don't know what the price for Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be, but it is on a 64 gigabyte cart according to CD Projekt Red. So this is what they put out on their official page. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition comes launch day to the Nintendo Switch 2. CD Projekt Red proudly announces that one of its best-selling games, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, will join the launch day lineup for Nintendo Switch 2. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition contains the base game and the spy thriller expansion Phantom Liberty in one ultimate package, available for the first time ever to Nintendo players. The game takes full advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2 features, including gyroscope aiming, motion controls, touchscreen commands, and mouse capabilities. Nintendo Switch 2 owners can purchase the game on launch day in a physical 64 gigabyte game card or digital download from the Nintendo eShop on Nintendo Switch 2. So that right there confirms it. It will be available 64 gigabyte game card. There were no 64 gigabyte game cards on the Nintendo Switch 1. So this is definitely something that is uncharted territory for Nintendo, because those game cards are expensive. Even the 32 gigabyte on the Nintendo Switch 1 was expensive. CD Projekt Red and Nintendo did work together to get The Witcher 3 on a 32 gigabyte cartridge, but there's not many games even on a 32 gigabyte cartridge on Nintendo Switch 1. So I'm very curious to see what the price of this game will be and what they decide to do with it. I'm guessing it's going to be 60, but I don't know, man. It might be 70. Cyberpunk's pretty cheap on other platforms, but it does give you the DLC and all of the extra content in there, so at least you're getting that. And they've pretty much patched up the game. It should run, since they're building it specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2, should run good overall. And even if you look at what they did with The Witcher 3 and the work that was done there, despite it looking kind of crusty, it still ran better than what anybody could have even thought overall. So definitely very good. There's additional language packs that can be downloaded if you want to have the language packs. That may affect the final size, because obviously there's a lot of dialogue and everything. So it's interesting for sure. It's definitely interesting. And the fact that they're actually having a full version built for it with a 64 gigabyte cartridge, that's definitely a good thing, and shows that there is real physical games. It's not just game keys and all that people were trying to say online. So let's get into that game key and where the misinformation kind of came from and where it just kind of spread. This was from Nintendo's official customer support channel on Nintendo Switch 2, and they talked about Nintendo Switch 2 game key card overview. So they said game key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game key card is your key to downloading the full game to your system via the internet. After it's downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into your system like a standard physical game card. Here's what the game key card packaging looks like. So you can tell if a game has a game key card because it will actually say, hey, look, this is a game key card. If you look at the box arts when it comes to what's been out there for Nintendo Switch games with different places for pre-orders or just showing off the prices for the games, you can see that all of the Nintendo Switch first party games that they've shown off don't actually have that. There's only 2 that do, and that is Street Fighter 6 and the Bravely Default Remaster. So those are the 2 games that have it, and it says to download a game, an internet connection and enough free space is required. So after it's downloaded, the internet connection is only required when you launch the game for the first time. After that, the game can be started even without an internet connection. However, like a regular physical software, the game key card must be inserted into the system in order to play the game. So what essentially this means is that this can actually be sold. It can be sold or traded, or somebody else can use it because you need that game key card. It's very different from what Nintendo did on the Switch 1, where a physical box with a digital code inside, once you use that digital code is done. It is done. It's just a box empty with nothing in there, and you can't trade it or sell it or whatever. It's done after you do it. It's on your system. But with this, if you don't feel like owning the game anymore, or if you want to give it to someone, or if you want to sell it to someone else, you can definitely do that because that game key card is still needed to play the game. So it is a bit better than what we saw with the digital codes in a box, because this one can be bought, sold, traded, whatever. So still, I don't love the idea of this, and I definitely don't want to see developers taking this route, but it seems like we don't know how far it's going to go. But it looks like Nintendo's games, they're looking like they're going to be doing all physical, and even games like Cyberpunk 2077, those are going to be physical on the cart with the 64 gigabyte cart, which is just massive. But it's good to see that at least it's possible when it comes down to it, but I don't know what that price is going to be. So that's the difference, guys, between the actual real physical games and the game keys. Right now, like I said, only 2 games that we know of: Bravely Default Remaster, and it's into Street Fighter 6. Now, let's get into the backwards compatibility situation, because there's been a lot of talk about what games are supported. Nintendo talked about backwards compatibility with Nintendo Switch games on Nintendo Switch 2. So here's what they had to say. In addition to the Nintendo Switch 2 games, Nintendo Switch 2 can play compatible physical and digital games released on the Nintendo Switch system. The Nintendo Switch 2 system's hardware is different from Nintendo Switch, and some Nintendo Switch games may not be supported on or fully compatible with Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo's developers who created the Nintendo Switch 2 said that it was difficult for them to bring everything over because it's not a Nintendo Switch 1 in a Nintendo Switch 2, so it's a combination of hardware in addition to software programming to get these games to work. It's a combination between them, and most of Nintendo's games, they have 122 titles that they've released. Most of them will be compatible, as you can see by this blue chart here. No issues found at all, and they kind of have like a color grading here overall. So it seems like every single first party game, there's pretty much going to be no issues at all when it comes to Nintendo Switch first party titles. However, if you go over to the partner games, which there's over 15,000 games, there are some issues when it comes to games that can be started but further tests in progress, or games that issues popped up during the startup. So there is a list, and I will direct you guys, link in the description, if you want to see the list of a variety of different games that will have some issues on startup or something like that. But most of the games overall, if you look at it, most of the games do work, and there's no problem overall with it. So backwards compatibility, it's not 100%, but it's pretty much close to it. They got most of the great games that you're going to want to play. So we'll see how they'll do it when it comes to some of the compatibility with some of those third-party games that are not. But for right now, all the big Nintendo Switch first-party games and most of the big third-party games, everything seems to be a go on that. Now, one more thing that I want to point out here, guys, is the Nintendo Switch 2 memory in terms of how you play your games. The micro SD express cards, those are the new storage because they're much faster than regular SD cards. You're going to actually need the micro SD express cards, which are a bit pricier overall. You cannot use a regular micro SD card that you use on your Nintendo Switch 1 because the memory is too slow to be able to run the games at the speeds that they would need to be able to run at in order to not have crazy long loading times with the graphical fidelity and the stuff that they're upgrading when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. So keep that in mind, that you do have to get the micro SD express storage overall. So right now they're not too bad. You can get 256 for $60, but I think over the course of time those are going to get cheaper. The support is up to 2 terabytes, so look out for like Black Friday, holidays. They're going to be cheaper for these micro SD express storage cards, but I just want to let you guys know that is the official support there. So hopefully this covered all of the information that's kind of flying around there, maybe that you're confused on. And of course, if you have any other questions, we will be answering everything on our live streams that we do as well. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell to know when we go live and when our videos drop. So thank you guys so much for watching today. I do appreciate it, and we'll see you guys for the next one. Peace out.